It's our last Patreon-sponsored episode for a while, and this one comes courtesy of supporter Umar Ali, who requested the basics on his favourite character, Earth-loving Autobot master of holograms, HOUND. The toy that would become HOUND was originally released in 1983 as part of the Japanese toy line Diaclone. The figure transformed into a Mitsubishi Jeep J59 and was later imported by Hasbro to become part of the first year of the Transformers line in 1984. Marvel Comics writer Bob Budiansky wrote a profile for HOUND that characterized him as a bot fascinated by the natural wonders of Earth, who loved exploring the planet and secretly wished that he could be human himself. The profile described how HOUND possessed powerful scanning and tracking abilities that he employed in his function as Autobot Scout, and a gun that projected three-dimensional holograms. HOUND was the lead Autobot character of the Transformers cartoons pilot miniseries, his fascination with Earth leading him to form a friendship with human Spike Witwicky as the pair taught each other about their respective planets. The miniseries saw HOUND suffer the fury of Laserbeak, engage Rumble in an underwater battle, and dupe Ravage as part of a plan to lure the Decepticons into a hologrammatic trap. Immediately after the pilot, however, the cartoon's new story editors decided to shift the role of Spike's Autobot friend from HOUND to the Autobot's own little brother character, Bumblebee. And though HOUND would continue to appear quite regularly in the show's first two seasons, he never really got to take the spotlight again the way he had in the miniseries. His most notable adventure saw him team up with Spike and Skyfire to foil a Decepticon plot to steal oil. Otherwise, HOUND's most memorable moments in the cartoon all tended to involve his holograms. Budiansky had actually intended for HOUND to use this ability primarily just to generate maps, extending only to simple illusions at best. But the cartoon depicted HOUND as being able to create huge, complex, lifelike images that he used in many ways, from terrifying the Decepticons with a projection of a giant Autobot, to tricking the villains into thinking that the Autobots themselves had been destroyed, on two separate occasions.
Amazing what you can do with a little hologram.
In contrast to the large role the cartoon had initially given him, HOUND never really got to do anything significant in the Marvel comic. Even his appearances in stories exclusive to the United Kingdom's version of the comic were mostly just recreations of notable moments from the cartoon, like battling Rumble and chasing Ravage. With the discontinuation of his toy in 1986, HOUND was quietly phased out of the cartoon, putting in some final cameos in The Transformers the Movie and the Japanese exclusive sequel series The Headmasters. While in the comic, he was taken offline by injuries sustained battling a Decepticon-controlled copy of Optimus Prime, then brought back to life just long enough to be killed again by a cosmically powered Starscream. There were initially plans to revive HOUND for the Generation 2 toy line in 1995. Two separate figures were designed, a green SUV in homage to his original form, and a much more uncharacteristic white payloader named Sergeant HOUND. But both figures wound up being cancelled and never saw release. While HOUND did appear as a supporting player in the Generation 2 comic book, the failure of these toys to materialize meant that it would be nearly another decade before he returned to toy store shelves, as one of the early entries in 2004's Transformers Alternators line, now with a fully licensed Jeep Wrangler alternate mode. In the 15 years since, HOUND's been a pretty reliable part of Transformers toy lines. Standout figures have included those from 2008's Transformers Universe, which was packed together with Ravage in homage to their sharing the screen in the original cartoon pilot, and 2016's Combiner Wars, as one of a team of Autobots who could merge with Skylynx to form the Combiner Sky Rain. Hound has typically never strayed very far from his classic look as an off-road vehicle with a military green paint job and distinctive white star decal. But in 2015, the official Transformers convention, BotCon, did pay homage to one of the unreleased Generation 2 figures with an exclusive new version of Sergeant Hound. Sadly though, Hound's reasonably regular presence in toy lines hasn't been reflected in Transformers media in the 21st century, with mostly just a string of bit parts and cameos to his name. The only truly major role that he's had since the original cartoon has been in the world of the live-action movies, in which two rather different incarnations of Hound have featured, but neither of whom has borne anything more than a superficial resemblance to the original, lacking both his characteristic love of Earth and his hologram powers. The first was a technical specialist who transformed into a Humvee, introduced in, of all places, the 2007 video game for the PlayStation Portable. This game's story was an expanded version of the first film, which inserted Hound into the movie's events. While the other Autobots were busy with their on-screen adventure, players controlled Hound through his own side story with his buddy Trailbreaker, investigating the Arctic cavern where Megatron had once been frozen, discovering an army of Decepticon drones, and ultimately sacrificing his life to transmit a virus that took the drones offline. The second, far more famous live-action incarnation of Hound debuted years later in the 2014 film Age of Extinction. A pot-bellied, bushy-bearded, cigar-chomping old commando voiced by actor John Goodman, this boisterous, heavily armed Hound never met a problem he couldn't solve by shooting it in the face, whether it was an army of Decepticons,
You're all gonna die!
A fellow Autobot he was having an argument with,
Cut the crap before I drop a grenade down your throat.
or an alien that looked at him funny.
You're just too disturbing to live. Oh! You're dead.
Transforming into a green military vehicle was really the only point of commonality between this trigger-happy Autobot and the original Hound. In Age of Extinction, he was an Oshkosh Defense FMTV, while in the 2017 sequel, The Last Night, he had adopted the form of a Mercedes Unimog, with numerous figures of both forms available in the film's various tie-in toy lines. During these years, the original Hound's most significant media presence has been in IDW Publishing's Transformers comic books. He appeared in the early years of the series as the leader of a squad of Autobots who helped battle the threat of Galvatron and the Dead Universe, and later served as a high-ranking member of the bridge crew of the starship Lost Light, sometimes acting as the crew's field commander in battle. But perhaps the release of his most recent new toy, as part of the first wave of the War for Cybertron Siege line, means that we can expect him to appear in Netflix's upcoming War for Cybertron animated series next year. With a high-end figure also on the way in the prestigious Masterpiece series, Hound is clearly set to remain a trustworthy fixture of Transformers, fondly remembered by fans for that one major role in the cartoon. But well, let's just hope that he gets to do something else sometime soon. And those are the basics on Hound. Thanks to Umar for sponsoring this episode. Tell me about your favourite Hound in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe while you're down there and click the bell to be notified about future episodes. Next month we'll celebrate the basics turning 2 years old with some big episodes. See you then!